In storytelling, among the rules that one should follow in order to tell a well-structured story in a good way, there is one simple rule which says show don't tell. And what is one thing that can say 1,000 words without opening its mouth once? Design. More specifically for today, character design. I am going to be looking, as the title suggests, or maybe it doesn't, I don't know what I'm gonna title the video yet, through Kiryu's journey in Yakuza, and how his design reflects who he is and how much he changed in the franchise. I want to begin with Yakuza Zero because technically that's the chronologically most Yakuza game that takes place in the past, except for like Ishin and Kenzan, but those are their Kiryu. That's not technically Kiryu, you know. Just to get this out of the way, throughout Yakuza 1 and Yakuza 2, the original ones for PlayStation 2, Kiryu obviously wears the same suit, the gray and red suit, the iconic one. Those two games were obviously made without the context of Yakuza 0 in mind, or the context on the subsequent games either. And I always said this, and this is something I stand behind firmly. The PS2 Kiryu's character was not really fully crystallized. We can see that when he basically kills a guy in Yakuza 1, which would later be retconned in Yakuza 5, or basically giving up at the end of Yakuza 2 to spend what he thought were his last moments with Kaoru instead of rushing back to Haruka. The point I'm trying to make with all this is that Kiryu's character in the first PS2 games is rather static. So when I'm gonna be talking about Kiwami and Kiwami 2, which are the remakes of the first two games, I'm not going to pay too much attention to just that, even though it is basically the most iconic Kiryu look, but rather focus on how much this design ties to the context of Yakuza 0 and the subsequent games. Because again, Kiryu's character from Yakuza 3 onwards is rather different than he was in the first two games. Anyway, we begin with what's for many people the first look at Kiryu in Yakuza 0. Him doing classic Yakuza activities, extorting money from a person, and right away we can see him wearing a pretty basic black suit. Overall, his appearance is very youthful. This suit reflects who Kiryu is in this moment, in a way that he at this point is just a Yakuza enforcer. His morals and principles are still pretty underdeveloped. We can see that pretty early when Kiryu comes to help this random person who is getting attacked, but he does not do it for the sake of this person, but rather just because this part of the city belongs to the Dojima family. He's still pretty much under Dojima's thumb, and an enforcer for the Tojo clan. This would all change pretty soon. After he's forced to leave the Tojo clan, he begins to wear the suit that he wears throughout most of Yakuza 0, and that's the white suit that he bought with Nishiki's help, because of course canonically Nishiki is a fashion god. And this is the first attempt, out of many may I add, of Kiryu's to try to go straight. Because he cannot be Yakuza anymore, he needs to get a legitimate job that he finds with Tachibana. And as we will get to see throughout the entire game, Tachibana and Kiryu's bond with him sort of brings out the best in Kiryu, as it is in relation to Tachibana that we can see Kiryu's character that we know from the whole series starting to shape up. For example, when he's willing to go against the entire Tojo clan to help Tachibana reunite with Makoto. It's a rather striking contrast to where Kiryu was at the start of the game, where he was just a Yakuza enforcer caring to keep the Tojo clan running. The in-universe explanation for this change of suit is to make Kiryu look less like a criminal and more like a legit person. But if you ask me, this suit kinda makes him look more like a Yakuza than the black one.
You couldn't be any more Yakuza if you tried.
I mean, the black one is low-key just a normal suit. If he tucked the shirt in and buttoned up, it would look pretty normal if you ask me. The white one is a bit more flashy, especially because of the shirt. It is an orange shirt with a chain pattern. Orange is usually a warm color symbolizing happiness, positivity, optimism, you know, things like that. And while Kiryu definitely is someone who is emotionally strong throughout the series, almost someone who tries to reinforce the idea of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I do not believe you will find much happiness in the story of Yakuza Zero, quite frankly. What I believe, and this is purely my speculation that might sound incredibly schizophrenic, orange is a secondary color on the color wheel located between yellow and red. You could say that this weaker, lighter shade could represent Kiryu's newfound morals and values that would only grow stronger as his story goes on, to the point it becomes this very strong, prominent red, which is the color of the shirt in his most well-known suit. And the chain pattern, well, because this is chronologically the first time he tries to go straight, the chains on the shirt could symbolize him being chained to this Yakuza life, because anytime he tries to leave in the series, he always gets pulled back in.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Or I don't know, maybe Nishiki just likes shirts with patterns because he also wears a shirt with a pattern and he was the one to pick out the suit. Anyway, it's time to move to the suit that we all know and love. And what the deal with this suit is pretty clear. It sucks ass because Nishiki doesn't like it. I'm just joking. But it is true that Nishiki does not like the suit. But Kiryu does not care at this point. From now on, he chooses who he is. Getting this suit is a symbolic way of him saying that he is going to live by his own rules from now on. Nishiki tries to persuade him into getting a different suit, but he does not listen. Even though that this suit is already on its way out, according to Nishiki. And I'm referring to Nishiki with so much about the suits, but that's because he is a fashion god, so. This suit is grey because, as Kiryu mentions himself, he does not feel black or white anymore. But throughout Yakuza Zero, he found his new morals and values. He does not feel like he's pure white. He's somewhere in between, and the rest of his life is going to dictate where he ends up at the end. While Kiryu mentions that this suit is him, he would of course later grow out of this mindset. I'd say it's more like this suit represents the Dragon of Dojima. And of course Kiryu's ties to Yakuza. But later down the line, he proves that he's so much more than just the Dragon of Dojima. This suit would reappear basically in every game except for Like a Dragon Gaiden, and it would usually happen towards the end of the game, basically as Kiryu keeps getting pulled back into Yakuza business. And as for Infinite Wealth, he also slicks his hair back. When Kiryu is in prison, he wears the prison uniform, which symbolizes the fact that he's in the prison. In Yakuza 3, as he's running the orphanage, he's wearing a red and orange Hawaiian shirt. Cream pants, which at first I thought they are the same pants as he wears with his grey suit, but apparently they're not. And this is such a dad outfit. This is the type of thing your dad would wear on a vacation probably. And it fits the narrative so well, as that is what he is at this point in his life. He's the father of these children in the orphanage. And the shirt is red, which may mean that he still has the dragon in him and he's willing to step up whenever Daigo needs him. And I'm talking about Daigo specifically because he's the main reason Kiryu usually gets involved with the Yakuza business. Also, this shirt has, as I mentioned, the orange pattern. It's not fully red, which might symbolize Kiryu pulling away from his Dragon of Dojima persona. That is if we decide that the red shirt symbolizes the Dragon of Dojima persona. Yet again, this might just be me looking a bit too much into it, so take it with a grain of salt and you can even come up with your own interpretation and leave it in the comments. But moving forward to Yakuza 5, and I'm skipping Yakuza 4 just because he basically wears the same thing as in Yakuza 3. Yakuza 5 begins with Kiryu obviously wearing the taxi driver uniform. And it is what you would expect, it's a standard Japanese taxi driver uniform. Obviously Kiryu has not only left the Tojo clan behind, but also his children behind. And while this might be more emphasized in Like a Dragon Gaiden, he also lost his name. And this is what makes Yakuza 5 sort of weird. I think they were pretty much running out of ideas. I mean, just by taking a look at the story of Yakuza 5. I really love Gaiden for putting more emphasis on Kiryu's life after losing his children and his name. And I'm gonna get to it when I talk about Gaiden. But a lot of times, it really seemed to me the narrative in the subsequent games sort of needed to work around Yakuza 5 to make it work. I mean, they never tried to deny the existence of the game, which is really appreciated. But I don't know, Yakuza 5 is just such a fever dream. That being said though, in the very first cutscene when Kiryu is taking Daigo in his cab, Kiryu wears a red tie, which obviously is a part of his uniform, but at the same time, from what I've seen, red is not the required color for the tie in a taxi driver uniform. And in the first cutscene, Daigo asks Kiryu for help, and I guess for the first time Kiryu rejects him, which basically pushes Daigo to step up as the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan. Kiryu lets him very coldly know that he's not going to be there for him from now on. And pretty much for the entirety of the main story, Kiryu does not wear any form of red clothing, until of course he decides to go back to help the Tojo clan again. Of course, outside of the taxi driver missions, because he obviously needs to wear his uniform there, he's not wearing red, and this rejection of Daigo might symbolize his final goodbye to the Dragon of Dojima. From now on, he's unwilling to help the Tojo clan, until he's manipulated to again. Now you might say that he technically still wears a grey jacket, which was the color of his suit, but due to how raggy this jacket is, I'd be more inclined to say this is meant to more symbolize him fading away. As we can see with the rest of his outfit, it's all neutral tones, there is no color to it. Hell, I'd even go as far as to say that in the promotional material and the cover of the game, even his skin feels more faded and sickly. When at home, he wears grey hoodie with grey sweatpants, again reinforcing the faded tones. I do not think I'm going to have much to say about Yakuza 6. In Yakuza 6, he's back in his Dragon of Dojima suit. In a way, this goes well with the themes of Yakuza 6. Kiryu accepts that he cannot run away from his past, and that his family is always going to be in danger because of him. So he does not even try to run away anymore, but rather he embraces who he is, the Dragon of Dojima. When he's in Onomichi, he takes off the jacket. I think pretty much that just because the weather is hotter there, but I would say this makes him look a lot more lively compared to Yakuza 5, wearing the striking red shirt in comparison to the faded grey. This can bring up Kiryu's newfound drive to basically do what needs to be done and not to run away. At the very end, he wears this black suit like he did in Yakuza 4, but it's mostly so they can have the "We are Yakuza 6" moment. It's pretty much what I see in it. I didn't look much into it because to me, it's just for the main group so they can have the unifying theme for the final battle. Now, Yakuza 7 and Gaiden, I'm going to talk about these two at the same time because they take place at the same time. Kiryu's return in Yakuza 7 is made to be very triumphant. You can feel the aura oozing out of him. Gaiden, however, recontextualizes this a little bit. As I mentioned before, Gaiden is pretty much the only game where Kiryu does not wear the Dragon of Dojima suit. Obviously, at the end of Yakuza 6, Kiryu faked his death. This is also what I talked about when I said Gaiden makes this theme of Kiryu losing his identity in a far better way than Yakuza 5, because here you can really feel the pain in Kiryu after losing his name and everything basically. In Yakuza 5, you pretty much know that he will eventually have to come back at the end. But in Gaiden, you really get the idea that this is what his life is now. He might never come back, he might never see his family again. And I love Gaiden in that aspect, I love Gaiden in general. And that is pretty much what happens at the end. He does not go back to his family, he's shown a video of his children, but he continues to work for the Daidoji faction. Yes, you can at least have the fact that Majima, Daigo and Sajima at least now know that he is alive. They do have the grandiose shirtless fight at the end. The game still does not end with Kiryu's grandiose return, and Kiryu's attire and general design reflect that. Throughout the entire story, he's not Kiryu anymore, his name is Joryu now, because he is the man who erased his name. And yeah, Kiryu gets this brand new agent suit and agent gadget and agent glasses, which apparently work like Perry the Platypus had. But this suit doesn't really differentiate him from the other agents. It lacks Kiryu's distinctive personality. And yes, you do have the option to change your suit in the game, but I would say this reinforces the theme even further. Kiryu can now have so many different faces, but he's still not allowed to go back to what he was, as the Dragon of Dojima suit is not available. I do believe you are also forced to wear some sort of eyewear at all times. His attire and design in general now screams Kiryu is gone. My biggest problem with this is in Yakuza 7 he does wear the suit when he's about to fight Ichiban and the Ichi gang. I do not like this in the slightest. This feels like pure fan service. With the context that Gaiden provided, Kiryu has no business being there, and it does not even happen in Gaiden. That game just completely skips the segment, and that's a good thing, another W for Gaiden. And finally, Infinite Wealth. This is the game that probably saw the biggest change in Kiryu's appearance and general design. His hair is grey now, and he's also skinnier apparently. Narratively this should be obvious. Kiryu is old now, this is supposed to be his last game for like the 5th time now, but he's also dying from cancer. In regards to Kiryu, this game builds upon what Gaiden started. Kiryu is now gone, it's just Taichi Suzuki around these parts. Again, he's wearing a very neutral tones, but this time because of the black shirt this feels even darker. Black obviously symbolizing the color of death. The connotations here are obvious. Kiryu is prepared to die, but he's not going to just lay down. Throughout the game, Kiryu has the option to tie up loose ends, basically make peace and reunite with the characters he's been with along the way. And he doesn't do so for the most part, he just makes sure that they are doing okay. He only really reunites with Akiyama, and he tries to reunite with Haruka, but he decides not to at the end. Obviously the Daidoji faction does not really like this. They ambush him, but Kiryu wins, and he basically tells them that he will try to make amends for himself. Very briefly, he also wears this grey coat, which I see as a funny reference to Yakuza 5, but this one feels a lot more composed and clean than the one in Yakuza 5. I think this might symbolize that Kiryu is more at peace with what he has done than he was in Yakuza 5. And at the very end, in the true Yakuza fashion, he dons the classic suit and he even slicks his hair back. Narratively this makes sense because as in previous Yakuzas, he only wore this suit when it came to dealing with the Tojo clan business. And this is what this is. Ebina, even though I do not like him as an antagonist, he wants to get his revenge on the Yakuza. And what better way to get that than on the legendary 4th chairman Dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiryu. So this in a way is not just Kiryu's last stand, but also the last stand of the Yakuza in general. And obviously in the ending, when he's in the hospital, his hair is back down and he looks even older and more sick than ever before when he's about to be reunited with Haruka. And this might just be the end of Kiryu's journey. And if it is, I think it would be pretty fitting. No need to have Kiryu dying on screen in some grandiose battle. All you need to do is very subtly imply that he is surrounded by the people that he loves in his final days. And I think that's it for this video. Obviously, as I said throughout the video many times, this is just the way I see things. I might be pulling a lot of things out of my ass, and if you feel different about it, feel free to leave a comment, and don't forget to like right now. You should have done that before the video even began, because you knew it was gonna be good. And thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.